Thanks, Jessica and Dan.
Thanks,
Okay.
bye.
Bye.
What a team. What a team.
Teamwork. All right.
All right, Colleen, I think we're ready for you.
Okay, so we're doing the hands-on, right? All right. So I'm not sure everyone was at the presentation yesterday where we talked about Clubhouse research and Clubhouse data, and we presented some of the existing CPQ data from our research project. So if you weren't there yesterday, I believe it was recorded, and you can take a look at it later to see some of the results, but just a little background information if you weren't there. So the CPQ, or the Clubhouse Profile Questionnaire, is a database tool that's been used in clubhouses serving people with mental health conditions for 20 years now, probably. Originally, it was a paper survey, and then we developed this tool using Microsoft Access because it was software that was pretty much readily available to most of the clubhouses around the world at the time. So then during the research project, one of the activities was to customize the database so it could be used with the brain injury clubhouses. So this afternoon, we are going to just kind of do a walkthrough of the CPQ, how you use it, what you need to do when you get it, that sort of thing. So there are two things. The first one, when you get the CPQ, usually I send this setup and export guide first. The reason being that there are, we'll go through it, but there are a couple of things you need to adjust in the settings in Microsoft Access for all the background functionality in the CPQ to work correctly. So we'll go through that. And it also takes you through printing and those sorts of things. And then the other thing that people get is the CPQ itself. And this is a blank CPQ. So when you first get it, and hopefully, Cindy, maybe you can just nod if you can see this. When you get it, you need to adjust these settings. So up here in the corner, you would click File, and then Options. And unfortunately, Cindy, I don't know if the screen is changing as I'm doing these things, if people are able to see it. Yes?
It is.
Okay.
It's changing.
Okay, perfect. So what you need to do is just go into this Trust Center here, and we change the settings. And the main one, this macro settings, a lot of times you'll get it and you'll have one of these disabled. They need to be enabled in order for everything to work properly. So you would click enable and say, okay. If your settings weren't on enable already, you're going to get a message saying, and here it is, you must close and reopen the database for the option to take effect. Now, in my case, those settings are already there, so things haven't changed. Then there are a couple of buttons that down in the lower left-hand corner that allow you to do things like export your data, create a new survey, print the survey after you've entered information. In this case, because we're starting from scratch, we're going to say a new survey, and we click blank. Then you enter your name, and then we have a list of all the clubhouses around the world. So you would go through and pick your clubhouse. So maybe side by side. And then you just start to enter your information. So the date when your clubhouse opened, you can select it from the calendar, or you can just type it in. And right now I'm just typing in dummy data. This isn't necessarily when the clubhouse opened. If you have an auspice agency, just enter their name.
Are you doing a community test?
No, this is to enter information about the clubhouse.
Ah, okay.
So every clubhouse has one of these now, and it's a way for us to be able to describe programmatically what clubhouses look like, how many people they serve, what kinds of things happen in the work ordered day, all sorts of things like that.
Okay, I didn't know you were showing us a community test, and because it looks like what I did in the community with the old staff, Tamika.
Yep. No, this is just to enter information about the clubhouse itself.
Okay.
And then, so then it's just basically typing and tabbing. And you would just go through and enter all of your information. If you've had a visit from Clubhouse International, an accreditation visit, you would put that here. Some of these things you're probably saying to yourself, well, that doesn't really apply to us. But what we did when we developed the tool is we try to keep things pretty consistent in the database, regardless of whether you're a clubhouse that serves people living with a brain injury or people living with a mental health condition. So we try to keep it as consistent as possible across the different types of clubhouses. Once you're done entering a screen, you just click over here, these blue colored list on the left. These are actually buttons. So if I click it, now I've jumped to the budget screen, and you can see here on the left, right to the left of that profile, it looks like a little piece of paper or a book or something. And that shows you that data has been entered already in that screen. So then you have all sorts of different options in drop-down lists as much as possible. New program start as a clubhouse, location, separate building, the population, just choose the population size that's most appropriate. Unemployment rate. Now, as you start to go through, you're going to see some items here in the middle, like right underneath this clubhouse budget. There's some items here in blue. And then you'll see now my little pointer there is saying click for information. If you click that item, it will give you more information about some of these specific things.
That's invaluable, that information.
Well, hopefully, as people are entering it, it will kind of create some consistency across the board as people are doing it, especially when you're doing it once a year. You know, you go back and you do it a year later and you're thinking, what the heck am I supposed to put in here? You know, so hopefully it makes that easier. So there's little definitions in here of what we want you to put in those boxes.
We're going to go through these items after Colleen does this upper level view. We're going to go through the items and explain how they apply to us and what we're asking for. So don't worry that we're kind of going fast right now.
And here, I'm just going to put something in. And then what you'll see as you start to enter information in various sections, you see here this little total says 0%. But as I start to enter data, you can see things change. Now, what I'm going to do, you see my total here is 95%. What will happen if you go to leave the page and you have something, particularly where there's a totals, if it doesn't add up to 100%, you're going to get this little error message. It's going to force you to go back and fix it before you can leave the page. So then it's just a matter of double checking. You say, oh yeah, I forgot the 5% in the foundation grants. You see this total changes to 100. And then you can go to the next page. You don't have to do these screens in order. You can jump around. If you're part of a managed care system, you would say yes. Sometimes when you say yes, some of these questions, you'll see additional questions get activated that you can answer. Total membership, once again here, there are definitions or more information about the specific item to kind of help guide you as you're entering these numbers. Same thing, outreach. Somebody already asked an outreach question, but most of your clubhouses do outreach. This may not, especially now with the virtual services, particularly during the pandemic, this may not be face-to-face in the community. It might be virtual where you've called or FaceTime somebody or use some other social media to reach out to members. Any eligibility requirements for membership? Whatever it is that you require. So in terms of how many members that are interested in the clubhouse kind of tour and become members. And once again, this might be over the last year, if you were closed during the pandemic, this might be a little different than normal. And then here you can just check yes for anything that applies. Once again, if you click yes, you see additional questions get activated. Now, before we go on to the next page, you see up top here, this total active members, 90 days. This is one of the important numbers that kind of carries through from screen to screen. So particularly when you get to this member characteristics page, you can see that 25 is here. And it's going to force you to not have more or less than that 25. So there's some consistency across the board. What used to happen in the past is people would put, we had 50 active members, and then they would have a total of like 40 over here. Or totals that would add up to, if it's supposed to be 100%, we'd have 110% of something, things that just were logically inconsistent. So now there are totals across the board, and you can see it's keeping a running track for you of what you've entered. If there's nothing in that box, you can leave it blank or you can put a 0. You see here now my totals match. Oops. If you have the diagnostic information, you would click yes. Once again, it activates that section and it's referring to the number of active members. So you have the running totals again here. You just enter the numbers in tab. And a lot of these were some of the pieces of pie you saw yesterday if you were in that data presentation, like how long members have been active in the Clubhouse. And then I think it was it Dan yesterday or Drew, excuse me, asked about these other, had asked about some other diagnostic categories and things like that.
Yeah, that was me. That was based on,
I think it was this one.
yeah, it was based on what Jason had presented in his
Yeah, 'cause-
slides. Because when I'm, after your session during the next hour, I'm going to use 15 minutes of you guys' time to show them a tracking sheet that we've been using in Excel to correspond to the categories. So my spreadsheet only contained these categories.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same thing here. I'm just going to show you an example. So here, like here, now you see I've entered 110%. So if I try to go to the next section, once again, I'm going to get an error message and I've got to go back and fix that. Then if you say yes, this section, if people with other diagnoses are eligible for membership, if you say yes, then it activates the section and you can enter the amounts. And this one is this one is not required.
Is there a section for donations?
So there is a section around budget. So see back here, here's a row right here where you would add donations, like how much of the budget comes from donations. Staff, just like the membership, the number of full-time staff, any of these boxes in blue have numbers that kind of carry through to other screens. Here for the different types of staff, once again, if there's an item in blue text, if you click on it, you get a description for that item. In most of your, unless it's a Clubhouse director or you have an accountant or something like that, most of your staff are going to be these generalist staffs. Or a resource staff, you know, somebody who's an accountant, or maybe there's a maintenance person if you have a larger building or something like that. So once again, the staff count here down the bottom, this running total is going to need to match this blue box up the top. And then it carries through again to the next page. And you would just enter the number of staff in these different salary ranges. If you were located outside the United States, we actually have a thing where clubhouses outside the United States are able to convert over their currency in the beginning of the CPQ. So when they enter this, it's in like Swedish kroner or Australian dollars or Japanese yen, whatever they need or use, just to try to make it a little easier for them so they don't have to do those calculations themselves. Meetings, we have a drop-down list for how often meetings occur. There is a none at all. So if you don't have a particular meeting, you can just select none at all. Physical space. This one, believe it or not, I do get asked a lot from people who are like new Clubhouse development groups or startup groups are always kind of curious about like how big of a physical footprint, you know, should the building have? And then where there are places where there are times, you can see up above the box, it has kind of a little format that you're supposed to use to enter. Check off anything that happens in any of the work units. You had something else, add it in. Maybe you have 1 unit meeting a day, so 5 per week. And then you would just say, prepare lunch, clean. You would just kind of do a little list for that unit. Employment. Most of the brain injury clubhouses do not do transitional employment, but once again, you have descriptions for each of these types of different employment that might be offered in a clubhouse. So transitional, supported, and independent employment, group placements, day jobs, volunteer, customized supported employment. Looks like it's not working off the, I lost something. I'll have to double check that before we send it out. But so the definitions of each one should pop up for you, much like they did anywhere else. A little drop down list here for your primary vocational policy. Put as many as would apply. Here, if there's anything specific to your region or culture that might affect the clubhouse in terms of offering employment. So for example, in Ireland, the clubhouses in Ireland, the way their benefit system works, if somebody was to do transitional employment, they would lose all of their benefits. So they don't offer transitional employment because of that. So then they would put in a little description about that in this box at the bottom to kind of explain like, oh, we don't, it's not just because we don't want to do transitional employment, we really can't. So that sort of thing. Vocational supports. And these, if you only offer supported and maybe customized or volunteer work, you would just click the columns or boxes that you need. If you don't have TE, you're just going to leave that part blank. And then this this jobs sheet is the one that most clubhouses struggle with because a lot of clubhouses don't really have a good system of tracking who's out working, what they're earning, that sort of thing. So here, just enter it to the best of your ability that you can. What I would say is it is very powerful when we get, you know, an entire country or state, you know, and you start to see, you know, in Massachusetts last year, members in clubhouses earned, you know, $2 million. In terms of like advocacy, having some numbers like that, or having the totals of things like combined, all your clubhouses are serving, you know, 2,000 members or something. Those are, I think, are very powerful numbers to use in terms of educating people about clubhouses, advocating for whether it's more funding or more services, educating other stakeholders in your community. I think when you see the numbers together, it can be really impressive sometimes when people are maybe less familiar but with a clubhouse and what it is and what it does and who it serves. Educational supports. If you have any information about who might be going back to school, if they're taking courses, you can just drop that in. Functions of the house, there's two sets of columns here. So one is the services is really anything that's provided by staff to members. And then the members column is anything that's provided by members to members. So staff and members are probably both involved with making lunch, right? In terms of medication administration, that might be kind of a staff, pretty much a staff-driven service. But anywhere that members and staff are involved, you would just check both columns. If something is member only, you would just click the members column. If you have supports that are not listed on this page, you can just enter them in the other boxes at the bottom. And you would just check off anything that applies. Transportation. Once again, here you have a running total. We talked a little bit about this yesterday. It looks like I got to check that running total because it's not adding up, but same thing here. Earlier, you got that format for entering the time. So and we'll correct those as you go through. Frequency, maybe it's weekly.
Mama, these might be the most beautiful pair of earrings I ever saw, and I ain't even just talking to them. They just so classy.
Here, the yes. Just click. If it's yes, if it's no, then you're kind of prompted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Housing. So to the best of my knowledge, none of your clubhouses actually has like a formal housing contract, at least the ones that have done the survey so far, but you're still probably providing some housing supports. And if so, you would just indicate whatever services you're providing.
What about step siblings?
What was that?
Step siblings providing housing.
Step siblings?
Yes. I won't say any names, but I just,
Well, if the clubhouse, this would only be for members. So if they were supporting somebody else who wasn't a member, you really wouldn't count them on here.
no, living with the sibling.
Oh, living with a sibling. So,
Not,
so
yeah.
see here at the very top in terms of where people are living.
Mhm.
There's one for living with a family member,
Okay.
and that's where you'd put it right there.
Okay.
Oh, see, it just gave me an error message. And here you'll see all the services that might be offered in housing. So maybe you have some support services, the landlord negotiation. And then if you have funds, which most of you I don't think do, you would check off the housing funded. If it's not funding, it's just part of something you do in the regular work order day, you're just going to check the not funded. You don't have a special contract to provide those services. Here you can say yes, no, if you screen for these. Other information, how many members receive outreach annually? So this would be from the entire clubhouse. So if your active membership is 40, that number might be close to 40 every year, right? Because sooner or later throughout the year, you're probably doing outreach to most members at some point or another. If you have a warm line or hotline or on-call crisis services that are provided through the clubhouse, you would add those. Advocacy and community support. Training, this would be if you had a team from your clubhouse go to a training through Clubhouse International, one of their training bases. Research, if you have some sort of electronic record and it's something different than from what's up above, you can just add it. Some of these, once again, if you say yes, you see these boxes get activated. So clubhouses in the past, those 8 clubhouses we talked about yesterday that we had data from, they might have listed the brain injury research project that we just completed there. If you're interested in participating in research, there's a box there where you can enter the things that you would want to do if you had the opportunity to have a research project. Funding and governance, we have both sets of standards in here. If you don't, certainly if you're only going to do one, we want you to do the IBICA one for now. Especially if you're not familiar with the international clubhouse standards, those are available online. But I would assume that all of you are familiar with the IBICA standards. If you say yes, then it activates it and you can indicate which standards are challenging for your clubhouse to comply with. Your organization structure. So if you have an auspice or parent agency, if you have a board or an advisory board, whatever their role is. Most of you probably are going to say, might say yes here. Because you might be part of the Brain Injury Alliance or something like that. You're part of IBICA. It asks the next question about specifically about IBICA and whether you belong to it. But you might have some other coalition. So for example, there could be like a Virginia Clubhouse coalition. And if so, you would just enter that in there. If you have accreditation from Clubhouse International, if you have accreditation from CARF, you would just indicate which CARF accreditations you have and which programs within that. Okay.
Colleen, do we, with the CARF, do we just want the accreditation for the Clubhouse? Correct, what the Clubhouse is getting accredited under, not necessarily, because a lot of us have auspice agencies that get accredited under lots of other different standards.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep. That's correct. So now, once you're all done, you've got all your information entered. There's two things you can do, and you can see, you've got a bunch of buttons down here now in the lower left-hand corner. One is the print survey. And what would happen as you do the survey? So the clubs that we showed data for yesterday, they've done this survey multiple years now. You would see a list here, the one that we just did, maybe, July 15th, 2020, August 19th, 2019. And you can just pick the one from the list. So if you have done this for 10 years, maybe you want to say, oh, gee, I want to see what my Clubhouse looked like 10 years ago, what our data looked like. You would be able to pick that from the list and select view. And then there is a PDF of your information. And you can see up top here, there's a print button. If you print, select print, and then you might, if you don't have Adobe PDF, newer versions of Microsoft have this print to PDF version here. And you can say, okay, and it'll create a printed version of what you've entered there in this report. Okay, then to go back, you're going to say close view. And you're going to export your information. So you'll see a little message here. After the survey export, you have to restore your data by clicking new survey and selecting duplicate. So even though you're exporting it, it's still behind the scenes in the database. So you say, okay. And so now what this is done is it tells me where that data file that we just created by clicking that button is saved. But what I can do is open the file folder, and you can see there are a bunch of them here. But you would then right click it and send to mail recipient.
We can't see this part.
Oh, you can't. Okay. Hang on one sec. Bear with me for a minute. So hopefully you can see it now. So in that folder, you have your Clubhouse's data file, and it says DAT. Don't worry about that. That's done intentionally on our end to make sure your email server firewall doesn't block the attachment when you send it out. So if you right click on it, you can select send to mail recipient, and then it should create an email with the attachment, and you would just email it to me. Go back to the database. Now, once you've done that, you can see like, it looks like everything is gone. And this is the point where people usually start to freak out because they're like, what happened to all my information? It's really not gone. It's just kind of not accessible the way it is right now. So what you do, and I recommend people do this after you've done that export, it's good to do it while you're still in the database, not wait till you have to use it next year, you know? So then you're gonna go back, new survey. And if you select duplicate, it's just put all of your information back into the screens. So as you can see, it's all still there. Okay, so that's kind of a key thing, because what happens once you export, if I say blank, now you can see it's all gone. So there's two options there. Usually you're going to want new survey and duplicate. If something happened where your Clubhouse like drastically changed, then you might want the blank option, but usually you're just going to select that duplicate option. And we'd be back to entering information again. Now you can see, because we've exported twice. If I pick the print survey, you know, I was saying you'd see a list there from every year. Now you've got more than one. So if I pick the old one, you can see everything is still there behind the scenes. All right, do you guys have questions?
I just have one question. So for duplicate, you're just doing that to save yourself time for the following year, or is that so that you can view it and print it?
Well, you can print at pretty much any point in time. So it's more about just saving yourself time for the next year.
Gotcha.
Because a lot of these things, and I don't know if it'll let me go back there now, but a lot of the things like the tasks in the work order day, the Clubhouse address, your meetings, things like that, a lot of those things probably don't change drastically from year to year. So we on our end of things, we want to try to make this as you know, it's still a lot of work. It's a lot of data to gather, but we want to make it as kind of easy for you to update and enter information as possible. So that's why you kind of have the option of just, you know, plopping everything right back in.
Any other questions? So we're supposed to go into the session on explaining the different items, because people usually have a lot of questions, and then showing you examples of how clubhouses have collected the data. Do you want to take a little break first and come back, or do you want to go right into it?
Cindy,
A break, a small break.
yeah, well, I'm just thinking, is there anyone that might be in a different session that might come back to that second portion?
Could be. Good point.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's take a break and we'll come back at 2 o'clock and we'll go through the items. So be thinking about and be, you know, freely asking questions about these items. You can always email Colleen or me, and I'll forward to Colleen and weigh in myself if she's not available when we go to start filling it out. Because you will have questions if you haven't done it before. And then, you know, like Colleen has said, after the first time, it gets easy. It really does get easy.
Cindy, I have a question. I clicked on I'm giving a presentation at 2 o'clock, and I clicked on my link and it opened to this page. So-
Okay, well, that's good to know. Then we should take a break because we'll have a different link. I'm glad
That's right.
you reminded me of that. That's probably how the people in the social media session ended up hearing me last time, is I probably clicked in too soon.
Just before everyone goes, the other thing I would encourage you to do is to keep this on a server rather than on the
Yeah.
hard drive of one person's computer, just so you have it backed up. You know, if you've sent us a data file before, we do kind of have the capacity to restore your data, and that works most of the time. But it's just a good habit to get into of kind of securing your data in some place where it is going to get backed up. So I get a lot of emails throughout the year where, you know, maybe a director has moved on and there's a new director, and it's the first time they're hearing about the CPQ, and they're like, oh, it's not here on our computer, or, you know, my computer crashed last year and I can't find my CPQ anymore. So if you have a server, it's better to try to put it there. If you don't, I would recommend, and I don't know if you know, one of those little thumb drives, you know, something that's like this will actually hold the CPQ nowadays. But it's just, you know, a good habit to back it up just like you would anything else on your computer.
Cindy, I also noticed that when there are 3 sessions, okay, and the tour and then the other one, and when I clicked on the third one, it wanted me to enter a password. So I don't know whether there's issue technology wise with my group too, if there's going to be a password necessary.
Everyone was given the password. It's Ibica, all lowercase,
Okay,
if you're asked for that.
okay, thank you. I wasn't aware.
Yeah,
Appreciate the
I think
heads up.
Craig, I think the issue is several different clubhouses are using their Zoom account to host, and it depends on how they've set up their access.
Okay. Everybody's doing the best they can, and that's good enough.
Oh, man, it's amazing we're all here.
You guys are doing an awesome job. Dan?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on something Colleen was saying
Uh-huh.
about CPQ and the data backup and not putting it on local drives. The other thing is if you're connected with a larger organization like we are, putting it on a network drive will also do the same thing. The only thing is with access, only one person would be able to access it each at a time.
Mhm.
But
That's
at least
correct.
but the data does get saved on a network drive rather than just one computer.
Yeah, good point. Okay, we'll see everybody in 9 minutes.
So Craig, I would just recommend that you log out of this and wait until 2 o'clock and then log into your link.
Okay,
Okay, Craig?
Yeah, can you hang around? I want to talk to you. I don't want to take up other people's time necessarily.
okay, bye, everybody.
All right,
See you
thanks,
too.
everyone.
See you.
Thank you, Colleen.
What's up, Craig?
Yeah, Dan, the situation is that Alex Barna from Bend is going to be hosting. She's going to be doing the chat monitor.
Okay.
So we were going to get on early to talk, about the presentation because anyway, can people on this link get off then so that we can open the other link? Please.
I don't have the ability to do that, Craig.
It is what it is, but there is another link for you all to have your next session.
Right. That's why I have to leave this as well and then wait until 2 o'clock to go back in. So
Okay.
I think you got redirected because it's before your time. So you have to wait until 2 to log into your session.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
thank you.
You might want to Do you have Alex's other?
No,
You know what? She's on.
I sent Stephanie a message, but I didn't hear back in the chat. At least I didn't.
Alex, are you
So-
there at your computer?
Yeah, I'm here. I actually logged out of another meeting and logged into the 2 o'clock, which brought me into this main Zoom.
Right. I was just trying to explain that to Craig. So I don't know. I don't know if this is the link for the 2 o'clock and it was a link that we were sharing, or if you just got redirected to another session. So
No,
Oh.
this is the link for the 2 o'clock for his neuroplasticity.
okay.
So he's in the correct spot, and anyone else who wants to listen to the neuroplasticity, y'all are also in the correct spot. But I guess everyone's taking a break right now. But Dan, before you log off, are you able to make me host? Because that was a big part of what Craig and I were talking about this morning, is just the distractions of all the noises.
Yeah, I know. I was, let's see if I can. Jessica was asking me to do that, and I was limited as to what I could do for her.
I think it actually has Drew as the host.
It does, but sometimes depending on the settings that you set up behind the scenes in the meeting, your co-host can set people as co-hosts as well.
Mhm.
But it really depends.
So I don't have that ability. What it's showing me. Well, you know what? Let me share my screen real quick and I'll show you what I'm getting. I have, can you see this? So I have the ability to,
We can't see your screen.
Mm-mm.
you can't see my screen yet?
No.
All right. Okay.
So it actually,
How about now? Can you see that?
the host turned off my camera.
We need to maybe call Drew. I don't have his number though.
I don't know. I can't see.
Dan, do you
Alex
have
anymore.
Drew's?
What do you need?
It's the co-host issue. We're trying to make Alex the co-host. And Dan still does not have that option, although he's the co-host.